For today's episode, I'm going to show you how to make 2 cooked salads, or side dishes, that are staples at the lunch or dinner table in Morocco. They're made of eggplant or aubergine, tomatoes and peppers. You may have guessed it, I'm talking about Zaalouk, which we sometimes call aubergine caviar, and Tektouka. The Tektouka I will present you is a Tektouka Marqa, which means we don't crush the ingredients, we're keeping some texture into the dish. Both these salads can be prepared in many different ways. For example, you can make Zaalouk with aubergines that are fried, boiled, steamed or even grilled. I chose to make the fried kind because the frying process makes the aubergine golden and a little bit crunchy on the outside, but keeps it nice and juicy on the inside. First, I'll need aubergines or eggplants. I have to prepare them now so that they'll absorb less oil during the frying. I'm doing a classic salt and soak. So first I'm going to peel the eggplant partially. I like to peel them so that they come out looking stripy. Then I'm slicing the aubergine into 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter slices. Salt liberally and then soak.
Les légumes ou les fruits, c'est soit le sel, soit le sucre. Donc je vais saler généreusement. Puis après, je vais les rincer. Je vais les débarrasser en les salant de leur eau de végétation. Donc je récupère les rondelles d'aubergine. Je les dépose sur un plat. Alors, moi j'ai pris de l'avance parce que j'en ai déjà de prêtes.
Now I'm going to do the same with the aubergines we're preparing, and I'm putting the ones that are already ready in some oil to fry them.
Donc je vais faire la même chose avec celle que je viens de préparer là tout de suite à l'instant. Et je récupère celle-ci pour les rincer et les passer.
So here are my aubergines. I soak them in water, and now I'm going to take them like that between the palms of my hands and squeeze to strain them of excess water.
Et je les prends comme ça entre les paumes de la main et je presse.
Now that they're salted, soaked and strained, I'm putting them in boiling oil to fry them.
Je vais les faire frire pour les faire dorer.
I'm taking them out when they're a nice golden brown.
Vous pouvez le voir.
For the next step, I'm chopping the aubergines coarsely, as you can see, because we're not trying to make an aubergine mash, but rather to have fried pieces of aubergine. It's always nice to have some texture in dishes. Now onto the sauce, which will be used to finish cooking the aubergine. I'm putting in some fresh tomatoes, adding some tomato paste. Well, I'm making a tomato sauce, basically. I'm not using any oil at this step, because the aubergines are already fried, and they will release some oil into the sauce. And then it'll be perfect, so no extra oil is needed at this point. So I'm letting my tomatoes simmer on low heat, so the fresh tomatoes have time to cook down. And I'm adding a crushed clove of garlic. I'm also adding some shamala spice mix, a nice spoonful. And letting it simmer, covered on low heat. Obviously, we don't need to salt the tomato sauce, because our aubergine will still be very salty even if we rinse them after salting them. Starting now on the second salad, which is the Tektouka Marqa. It's the same basic principle, by which I mean we're adding the shamala spice mix, garlic and cilantro or coriander to flavor. But I'll need olive oil to cook down the tomatoes. I'm using 2 to 3 tablespoons, which I cut with 1 tablespoon of sunflower oil. I'm adding my tomatoes, peeled, deseeded, and cut into quarters. I'm placing the tomato wedges in oil. adding a clove of garlic.
Une gousse d'ail.
And then I'm going to wait. Before putting in the shamala spice mix and coriander, I have to wait until the tomato cooks down from the heat and salt, which I'm adding now to the tomatoes. I have to wait until the tomato cooks down from the heat and salt, which I'm adding now to the tomatoes. It's important to wait until tomatoes have released their water in the pot before you add the spices. Here, I'm covering them back up and letting them cook down, or sweat as we sometimes say, on low heat. I'm now adding the chopped fried aubergine to the tomato sauce, which is ready. Later, I'll finish off by adding the minced coriander, but that's for later, not right away. I'm mixing the tomato and aubergines, letting them simmer on low heat, covered it's better. Then I'll add the coriander when everything is almost done cooking. Now back to the tomato wedges. I've put them in a bit of olive oil, a clove of garlic, and a bit of salt. Now back to the tomato wedges. I've put them in a pot with some olive oil, a clove of garlic, and a little bit of salt. And as we can see, it's already beginning to sweat. I'm taking the bell peppers, red and green, which I've grilled and peeled beforehand. I'm cutting them just like this, because it doesn't really matter if the pieces are regular. But you can also do it on a chopping board, of course. Very well. As you can see, I'm not crushing the tomatoes. I left them in pieces. I can now add the spices because the tomatoes have released enough water to keep me from burning the shamala spice mix. I'm using a nice spoonful of shamala spice mix. And I'm waiting 10 minutes before adding the minced coriander because that has to come in at the very end. That leaves me with enough time to mince the coriander leaves, and then I can add them into the Zaalouk and the Tektouka Marqa as well. For the last touch, I'm adding the minced coriander. You can see that the tomato sauce has reduced nicely. The aubergines have soaked up our tasty tomato sauce, and that also gives them that nice tartness from the tomatoes. So let's have a look at the Tektouka Marqa. As you can see, I have a little bit of tomato sauce and our bell pepper. Now I'm adding a small handful of coriander. Give it a little stir. Let it cook for about 5 minutes. Then I'm serving the 2 salads in small tagine dishes. And you will see the final result in one moment. The salads are ready. They're presented nicely in our little tagines. The 2 dishes can be enjoyed either hot, warm or cold. And as always, I wish you bon appétit!